After e4, b6, d4 and bishop b7, we're playing against the Fianchetto Defence. And in this video we're going to go through, well, the usual development of bishop d3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, and now we're playing against the two Fianchetto Defences, right? And after h4, a move we haven't seen at all is knight to f6 now. The idea of speeding up the castling. But before we go through all of this, I need to make a quick mention of something that I keep forgetting to do. And then we're going to go on to the main topic. So b6, d4, what happens when our opponent plays the immediate bishop to a6? This is an annoying move, but obviously it's actually just much better for white already. I used to find it annoying because I didn't want to give up the bishop pair at the beginning, and I used to play this move c4, but this is not as good. The best thing to do here is go on with development. You can win a tempo here. Now, of course, you don't want to allow your opponent to take this bishop. That's the goal of the black player. Black wants to take this bishop, then you take back with the king, and you lose the right to castle for no reason. So you take this, knight takes back, and now queen to e2 wins the tempo because he's coming with an attack on the knight. Knight b4 doesn't make sense because you can kick it away. For example, a3, knight c6. Knight to f3 comes now. Attacking the square e5, which means that now d5 forces our opponent to play the knight all the way back to b8. Remember, a5 you just play b4 and you trap the knight. Knight e5 is no longer possible, so that means black will have to play d5. And now we go on with knight c3. We can't obviously take in d5, doesn't make sense. So now we play knight c3 and we are attacking the square even further. Our opponent will have to take, and here it's important you take with the queen. You don't want to take with the knight because there's two black attackers over d4. So you take with the queen, you're attacking the knight. You got three pieces developed, one step away from castling. Black is nowhere near castling. Position already evaluated as if white was up a piece. So let's say this now, queen to d7. You see how bad it is for black to have this structure here, the Fianchetto structure, without the Fianchetto bishop. Queen d7 to protect the knight can't happen because of knight e5. And the knight is pinned. You see you're attacking a8, you're attacking the rook. So you're winning completely the game. Here, if black plays here in this position, black plays queen d6. Knight to b5. Same thing, our opponent will now be forced to go back to d7, and now you got this. So let's take this from the start and let's make this mention of the bishop a6 line once again. Bishop takes, knight takes, queen e2. What happens when black goes back to b8? First of all, you should laugh at your opponent's face. But anyway, knight to f3. And now g6, trying to Fianchetto the bishop here and be able to develop. Knight c3, bishop g7, bishop to f4. Our development is just so much better. We can play knight b5, attacking this pawn. We got full control over every single central square with pawns. Our opponent doesn't. So black will have to play something like d6. Also because knight f6 here, you can just kick the knight away. You can attack it, and the knight will be misplaced. So d6, h4. h5 to stop h5 because h5 was going to happen, right? e5. Position evaluated like +4 or +5. I don't really remember at this point. Obviously, every single swap is favorable for us because our opponent is not castled. So the more we open the central files, the better. We're going to play rook d1. If instead black tries to develop, let's say knight c6. Okay, or either knight d7, whatever, you play e6. This is the thematic move. It's so that our opponent will not castle anywhere safe. If you think that taking the pawn is possible, no, because simply the long castle. And because of the compromised g6 h5 structure, our opponent, I mean, we can put the knight in g5 anytime we want and never have it attacked. So knight f6, knight g5. By the way, a move like e5 here doesn't work, obviously, because the rook's attacking the file of the queen, so you can just take this. So knight f6, knight g5. Got double attack here. Nothing stops us from taking there. If queen protects it, then you just go with the knight. And you keep the knight there. You can play d5. But most importantly, you're planning to play knight to b5 and go double attack in c7. There's a million ways to win this. So let's take this from the start now and go to the main topic of the video. d4, bishop b7, bishop d3, g6. So we're going through the two fianchettos. Bishop g7, h4. So remember to watch all the videos of this saga before you watch this one, so that all the previous ideas are clear and you understand the setups more and more. So we're gonna look now at the early knight f6. This is punished immediately with e5. And after knight to d5, well, knight g4 here runs into the usual. You might argue, okay, knight g4 seems to be well sitting there, cannot be attacked by a pawn. But this is bad because now you play h5. And now here you're forcing our opponent to take, because, I mean, that is going to be terrible for black. You won't be able to castle anywhere safe. And remember, we're also threatening to play h6. We're attacking it twice. Our opponent will be forced to go back with the bishop. And then, but now here, rook h4 traps the knight. Familiar strategy of playing f5 to defend the knight so that you can take en passant, and you should take en passant, doesn't work, because even when the knight goes to f6, yes, you have saved it for the moment, but at the cost of creating so many weaknesses around this side, the king side. And now you play bishop to g5. This bishop can never fianchetto. Opening this pawn will be pinning this knight forever, and the black player can never kick away this bishop from this square. So let's go back here, and let's keep going. Bishop d3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, h4, knight f6, and now e5. So after knight at d5, we play h5. So this is happening now. Let's make a mention of the fact that c5 can't happen here. It's a typical move to strike the center with the c pawn, which makes sense because h6, you're already playing that. Now you're winning a piece, unless our opponent saves it by playing bishop f4, bishop f8. But now c4, knight moves, d5. You don't care about the knight taking this bishop, because you see take, but you have achieved such a center, and our opponent has undeveloped his own pieces. Okay, knight a6 developing, trying to go to b4. Knight c3, careless. Knight b4, queen e2, you don't have to worry about anything. Queen c7, developing, maybe trying to castle this side, the queen side, maybe that's possible. Too late, knight b5 attacking the queen. Queen moves, and now knight to b6. Boom, how do you like that? If king moves, knight f7 wins. If pawn takes comes with check. King moves, bishop g5 check. Let's check, and bishop e7 blocking would be, well, okay, the king can go here, but then queen check. Mate, so bishop e7, check, king moves, and now knight e5 will finish the game. So in this position, after we played h5, our opponent went to c5. So we went through that already. What happens if black just plays knight to b4, immediately attacking the bishop? Okay, retreat the bishop to e2. There's always time to kick away this knight. You can play a3. And and we've seen something similar in one of the previous videos, so make sure you check them out. What happens when when black plays bishop a6 now? Still, you attack the knight. So after bishop takes with an attack on the queen, queen takes, and now this knight goes back. But now h6 is happening. Do you see? Bishop f8. d5 attacking the knight. The knight will have to go, but where? Here. Has to be here. Okay, knight to g5. This knight is a monster in g5. Here, a move like d6, trying to challenge this center, can't happen because you play e6, threatening to go to f7 with the pawn or with the knight. Well, with the pawn, since it will be checkmate soon. So what if instead in this position black plays c6, trying to reroute the knight into the game maybe. Okay, d6, that's it. And we're also planning to play queen f3, going for this weakness. Our opponent can never remove our pieces from there, the knight at least from there. If black plays e6, white plays knight to e4, and we should close the line here. And in this position, if our opponent tries to get out of trouble by playing knight to b7, and maybe, you know, messing around, waiting for us to make some mistake. You know, you just carry on with development. Knight c3. Our opponent will have to do something at some point about these 3 pawns here. Look how ridiculous they look. d6 maybe? Okay, queen f3, going for mate. Well, it's not really mate, the king will move, but then you attack it again. But you also have a chance of playing e6 to stop that from happening. You also have knight f7, everything wins. f6, here, does it work to stop that? No, knight e6, attacks the queen. Queen moves, and now you take here. And we're gonna close the line here. It's 2 over. One more mention before we close this video and the chapter of how to beat Fianchetto Defences is going to be the following. Bishop b7, bishop d3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, h4, and now d6. This is very likely to transpose into something we know already, so make sure you watch all the videos of this saga, most importantly the first one. But there's a line I never showed, so let's go through it. h5 comes now anyway, and now if black plays, let's say, knight f6, we know what to do. h6. That's the intention of playing h4, h5, h6. Bishop moves, and now e5. This bishop here doesn't remove the knight from defending e5, because when you take back with the queen, you're going to attack on the rook. So take. Knight d5, and now a3 stops the knight from going to b4. So c4 now is a real threat. So let's see if c5, the knight can go to c7 eventually. Bishop e4 is the best move. Now we're threatening c4, the knight is pinned, if you think about it, right? You want to go to b7. So after bishop to c6, best move. So the bishop will be defended by the knight. Knight to g5. Always go to g5 in such a game. e6, protecting the knight, and, you know, maybe playing bishop e7, planning that. Okay, queen f3, attacking everything. Queen d7 protects the d7 square, but now c4. And that's it. The knight will have to move, by the way, nowhere. Okay, let's say c7. But it's completely over. I mean, position evaluated almost +7, so that's really crazy. Knight to c3 defends this more. The knight in g5 can never be removed. This knight can never develop, this rook can never develop, the bishop cannot do anything. Because if you move the bishop where to e7, you are allowing us to reach f7, so that's not possible. Swapping doesn't help, because he's just going to play knight back, and the knight here becomes super strong. Nothing helps at this point. If b5, for instance, queen to f6, targeting the rook, rook to g8, knight h7 wins an important pawn. When you remove the queen, you're threatening knight f6, but you're also threatening to push the h7 pawn. Position evaluated +7. Let's leave it there. And let's see one more thing. Here, when we just played h5, we went through. Our opponent played knight f6. What happens if h6? Okay, it looks like now our plan of playing h6 has vanished. Okay, well, then we take this pawn. Pawn takes back. Knight h4. This is the thematic move, okay? So when the opponent plays h6, preventing you to advance the h-pawn, swap everything and then play knight h4, attacking that square. g5 doesn't help, because knight g6, rook to e7, e5. It would be great to play e6. We also don't want to allow our opponent to play bishop to d4. So e5 is perfect. With bishop to g3 attacking the rook, doesn't matter. We're going to play queen h5. King can't just escape because you got a fork here. And king, well, basically there's no way to stop the discover check. If our opponent just say, oh, you know what, show me what you got. Bishop takes rook in h1. Well, knight to f4 check. And now is the king f8. You got this. Check, wins the queen. Or is he also checkmate? I don't know. You figure it out. What if instead our opponent goes to d7? Okay, with a bishop f5 check. King to c6. We recapture the bishop. And we also have an attack on this rook in h5, by the way. So you carry on from here. And in this position, if we mentioned g5 doesn't work, but how is the black player going to stop us from going to that square? King f7, does it work? No, because you sacrifice the knight. King takes, and now queen h5 check. And yeah, well, king h7 here will run into the check of the bishop as well. And even then king f6, then queen f5 is mate. So here we are. End of how to beat the Fianchetto defenses. Thanks for staying all the way with me and for studying hard. I hope you now know how to deal with Fianchetto defenses as good as you possibly can. Make sure to remember to like and subscribe and share these videos with friends to support the channel. And I'll see you in the other videos.